It is crossover Thursday, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Bucs in a battle of playoff hopefuls as we wait to see what the status will be with stars on both teams like Justin Herbert and Bucky Irving.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into Crossover Thursday, the best day of the week, and we got a big one today. Shout out to all the listeners of Locked On Bucs and Locked On Chargers. Thank you for making us your first listen. To make sure you never miss the shows, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and the Locked On Bucs YouTube channel, as well as finding us wherever you get your podcasts from. And Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. James Yarcho today. Daniel Wade here from Locked On Chargers. Excited for this one. A big game with huge implications, man. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, it should absolutely be a good one. And this is one that Bucs fans have kind of had circled since the bye week. You know, everyone was talking about the Bucs had the easiest schedule in the NFC coming out of that bye week, but this was the game where they were going to face a really, really tough test. Should be an interesting game, to say the least.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're going to see fireworks. I think, it definitely should be a close game. Chargers play a lot of close games. And to me, the Bucs are a team where it's definitely, when you look at the Chargers schedule, could be the toughest game. They get the Bucs, and then next week you get the Broncos on Thursday Night Football. But this, to me, is the one that brings a specific set of challenges with this offense. A great offense so far this year at the Bucs, and a great defense so far with the Chargers. And the Chargers haven't played as great of defense when they played against the big offenses. But when you're looking at what the story is right now for the Buccaneers going into this game in a huge playoff, wide open NFC South, what do you think the biggest story is?
I mean, the Bucs are absolutely just bludgeoned with injuries, but I think the biggest one for this specific game has to be the status of Bucky Irving. He played a couple of snaps against the Raiders last week, left the game, aggravated that back injury. He's also dealing with a hip injury, but against a team like the Chargers on the road, you need your top running back, and that's what Bucky Irving has been for the Buccaneers this season. Now, no shade to Rachaad White. I thought he did a great job last week. I thought he's done a solid job all season, but Bucky has been the electric player that the Bucs drafted out of Oregon in the 4th round. He was the NFC Player of the Week just 2 weeks ago after his game against the Carolina Panthers. So he has been the guy that has really driven this offense since coming out of the bye. He did it against the Giants. He did it against the Panthers. And then all of a sudden, you saw a problem with this offense. Bucky Irving isn't there, and all of a sudden they go through a stretch of 6 straight possessions where they either turn the ball over or they punt it. So Bucky Irving being on the field changes the entire dynamic of what Baker Mayfield is able to do, what Liam Cohen is able to do. He is just that guy that the Bucs have been able to rely on, and if he's not on the field, it really changes what the offense is going to be able to do against a tough defense on the road in a game that, I realized that you could lose this game if you're the Buccaneers and still make the playoffs. You could still win the division, but you control your own destiny right now, and getting a win over the Chargers would go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point too, because for the Chargers, it's similar where it's like they don't need to win this game to make the playoffs. They're at 8 wins right now. They probably need 2. That's probably their magic number going into this one. And you have games against the Raiders and the Patriots in the final 2 weeks of the season. Compared to this game, those games look a lot easier. But I think what you don't want is to get to those final 2 games and need to have them, right? Because that's really going to be something where you're going to have to kind of hold your breath the entire time. And in a season where you're 8-4, now you're heading into the last 2 weeks of the season, just hoping you can, scratch and claw your way kind of out of the hole you've built and dug yourself. But I think for Bucky Irving, it's so awesome to watch what he's able to do, right? One of those poor RAS score guys where the hate just goes way too far, and then you see him out here absolutely balling out. And I think has been a big part of the reason, the Buccaneers, all of a sudden, James, you turn around, and they've been one of the most dominant rushing teams in the league the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and they were one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL over the course of the last couple of years. So to see what they're doing in the run game, they're one of the best offenses in the NFL, and a big part of that is what Liam Cohen has been able to do as the offensive coordinator, what Bucky has brought to the running back room, and then the offensive line. The offensive line has been absolutely fantastic. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last year. Ben Bredesen has stepped up in a big way, a big free agent signing from the New York Giants, and his availability leading into the season was kind of up in the air, and it wasn't until yeah, Sua Opeta that they signed from the Philadelphia Eagles went down with injury that Bredesen kind of won that job by default, and all of a sudden he's been crushing it. He pops up on the injury report as it did not participate on Wednesday, because what Buccaneer did participate in practice on Wednesday. But then you draft Graham Barton with your first round pick. You draft a center. That's not something that happens very often, but he's been a game changer for the Buccaneers. So this offensive line has been huge. Bucky has been huge. And again, I'm going to hammer this point for the next 30 minutes. The Bucs have to be able to run the ball effectively against the Chargers defense if they have any hope of winning this game. Rashad can do a good job. Sean Tucker can do a good job, but Bucky changes the entire dynamic. So that is one that Bucs fans and Chargers fans need to be watching for the rest of the week, is what is going on with Bucky and these practices.
And if you look at kind of the common denominator of some of these Chargers losses, like especially Derrick Henry kind of getting battered by him, also giving up a 50-plus yard rushing touchdown against the Ravens, that wasn't Derrick Henry. You can run the ball on this Chargers defense, and the games that they've been able to slow other teams down on the ground are the games they've had good chances in, and ultimately ended up winning a lot of those. But the other big thing is they played a lot of bad teams who couldn't continue to run the ball against them just because they got in such big early deficits that maybe the Chargers run defense isn't even as good as what the numbers would suggest. But I'm sure Chargers fans are going to revel in the fact that they're going up against a team that has an injury report that's longer than theirs is. That is not the norm. I mean, it's twice as long as what the Chargers is this week.
19 players on this injury report.
Chargers fans, you think you have it bad? Obviously, it can be worse and it can be longer, and we're seeing that this week with the Bucs. But what are you looking for from this Bucs defense? I know I listened to a little bit of Locked On Bucs to get some insider info, and it was basically, hey, the injury report is long for a reason, and Todd Bowles is kind of doing what he can with the guys he has out there right now.
Yeah, obviously the big loss coming into this week is going to be Antoine Winfield Jr. He left last week with a knee injury, but that means you're down Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jordan Whitehead, your two starting safeties. You bring in Mike Edwards. You don't even get 2 full games out of him. He goes down with injury. So your safeties are Kayvon Merriweather and Christian Izien. Now, Christian Izien has been really good, whether he's been a safety or he's been a nickel corner. But beyond that, it's Ryan Neal, who they signed to the practice squad they had on the roster last year. That's why they went out and got Jordan Whitehead, because Ryan Neal was terrible. And then you have other guys on the practice squad that you could call up, but that's been the big thing. It's the injuries. You have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who has missed the last 2 weeks. You don't have an inside linebacker outside of Levante David. And I realize he's the ageless wonder, but KJ Britt and JJ Russell, both missing time with injuries. You have Vi Jones. They just signed Deion Jones, former Falcon, to their practice squad. I doubt he's activated for this game, but it's just injuries up and down the field. So this Bucs defense has to find a way to overcome all of these injuries going up against the Chargers offense. Now, I'll be honest, it's helpful for the Bucs, not so helpful for my fantasy team that J.K. Dobbins is out. Yeah. But this is still a dangerous offense that can make some serious plays when they need to. And this Bucs defense is just bleeding production to opposing offenses.
Yeah, and I mean, for the Chargers, right on the flip side of it, it's how do you exploit that, right? Because the NFL takes no mercy, and you're looking for any kind of advantages you can get. You're going to find them potentially this week in that Bucs secondary, on that Bucs second kind of line of defense. But that's aren't the parts of the Bucs defense that really scares me. The thing that scares me is the 350-pound defensive tackle that plays in the middle of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers line and the Chargers' weak interior line, and that is definitely something that they have to get addressed. But they are a team that could potentially be exposed in those spots, as James telling you. There's a lot of things moving around in that secondary, and there's a lot of ways the Chargers can exploit it. Yet they also got shut out for the entire first half last week, so we don't know which Chargers offense is going to show up, and we don't know how healthy their quarterback is going to be, which is definitely the biggest story on the Chargers side. So we're going to flip things over here on this week's Crossover Thursday, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Bucs. Let's do it. First, though, I need to tell you guys that the only place you should be placing your bets for this game if you want any action is, of course, our friends over at FanDuel. And FanDuel thinks this is going to be a close one this week. The lines are out. The Chargers are entering as 3-point favorites, but if you know the rule, the home team gets 3 points. So what does that tell you? Looks like a coin flip game. But the good news is, if you guys want to get in on the action this week, they have a great offer for you because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app also gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. They also can do not just, the Chargers, the over-under for this game, 45.5 points. You can go alternate spreads. You can go alternate point totals. And even if there will be overtime or not, and you guys can place your first $5 bet on this game, just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And I think you guys might want to be going to this game. If you're in the greater Los Angeles area, you should be headed to this one. It really is a fun game. If I was just looking at the fun scale, Baker Mayfield, the gunslinger, versus Justin Herbert and this team, that would be way up there. And the great news is, Game Time has Game Time picks now. And it's not just sports, right? Theater, music, comedy, whatever you're looking for, you should be going to Game Time to get your tickets. But if you are trying to go to this game and you go to their Game Time picks, I'll tell you what those are. With Game Time picks, you can filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So I clicked that on. What did I see? $39 tickets to this game. Game Time picks. The other great thing about it, I have all-in pricing toggled. That is a button you can push. What you see is what you are going to pay. It's one of my favorite parts of Game Time. The other great thing is getting that surround 360 view of what your seat's going to be. You don't want to show up to the game and be sitting behind a pillar, especially in what we know as a great Coliseum in SoFi Stadium, a beautiful, beautiful stadium. But with Game Time, you also know you're going to get the best price because if you find tickets somewhere else in the same section and row for less, they will credit you 110% of the difference. You can go to this game for $39 right now, and you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Well, we have to switch things around here, James, and talk about the Chargers, who have been kind of an enigmatic team. I mean, you don't know necessarily what team's going to show up, but they have had some things for them going this season where you can kind of count on. You can count on them to beat bad teams. That's something they've done consistently. What they haven't been able to do consistently is beat good teams, and the Buccaneers are kind of one of those teams where I think they're a good team, but they're not also, maybe the statement win of it. You're taking down a Lions team or something like that. But I feel like the Bucs record isn't really indicative of what this team has been, especially when you're talking about a stretch of games where, if anyone knows what it's like playing without weapons, it's Justin Herbert. But a stretch of games where you're missing not only Chris Godwin, but also Mike Evans as well, and just kind of having to piece together what the rest of that offense is looking like. But for the Chargers offense, we all know what it revolves around. As much as Jim Harbaugh said he was going to take things off Justin Herbert's plate this year, you still needed Justin Herbert a lot more than maybe you hoped, because you talked about J.K. Dobbins, which is a huge loss for this game. They were still trying to figure out their offense with J.K. Dobbins. Now they're trying to figure it out still without him. And Gus Edwards, when he's gotten the carries, has been okay over the last month or so, but still, it's not been a huge strength for this team. And they've needed a lot of Justin Herbert and needed him to put the Superman cape on a little bit. And going into this game, there's some questions about his health. So he did not practice at Wednesday's practice for the Chargers. A DNP. He not only has a left ankle injury, but also a left leg contusion. And I don't know if I'll ever know what a left leg contusion is or a leg contusion in general, but it's not good. And I talked to you a little bit before the show. Like, I don't think he's going to miss this game. Jim Harbaugh wasn't even convinced he was going to be able to keep him out of practice today. He said he just looks in his eyes and Justin Herbert, telepathically tells him, like, I'm good to go, coach. They're just both former quarterbacks that understand. But this is a huge part that's really lingering over this game, James, because Justin Herbert's awesome, but we've seen already this season that a limited Justin Herbert isn't quite the same player. And if you have a limited Justin Herbert going up against that offense on the other side, it could be a big issue.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, I a hat tip to Justin Herbert, because I think there was a lot of outside speculation as to what he was going to be able to do this year. You see them get rid of Keenan Allen and they get rid of Mike Williams, and it's like, okay, well, now Herbert has nobody, and he's done a fantastic job. He really has. I've been impressed with him watching from afar. And the big thing that I look at is the Bucs defense, the way that it's been forced to be structured because of all of these injuries. They will leave opportunities out there that even a limited Herbert is going to be able to take major advantage of, because there are holes all over the field. I know I talked about KJ Britt being injured, but he's been terrible in coverage. That's why the Bucs are in the bottom quarter of the NFL in defense against tight ends. And of course, Will Disley, is he going to play or not? That's a big question. And is someone going to be able to step up in his place at the tight end position? But look, there's still going to be opportunities for the taking here. So I'm not going to take a limited Justin Herbert lightly. This is the same guy that his rookie year went toe-to-toe with Brady. I think he had like 2 or 3 50-plus yard touchdown passes in that game. It ended up being one of the most exciting games of the season. But, I know Chargers fans are going to look at that and go, oh, geez, limited Herbert. We've seen that before. We've seen that movie. Trust me, you have not seen that movie until he has faced the Bucs hampered defense.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing with the Chargers, and especially just the consistency of their offense, their passing game in general, is they haven't always been able to take care or at least take advantage of those big matchups. And especially if you're talking about a limited Justin Herbert, though, James, you're talking about a Justin Herbert who doesn't have the kind of escapability and pocket mobility that he normally has, which is really, really good. He has saved this offensive line a lot of sacks showing up in the box score, but a lot of that's been when he's healthy. What we have seen is him going to the Steelers game a little banged up, and he didn't finish that game. That's the nightmare scenario. Came back the next week and played it out through Kansas City in a game where, again, their offense got shut out in the second half. But yeah, with Ladd McConkey's status kind of up in the air, limited participant on Wednesday, but he was limited all week last week and didn't play in the game. So there's nothing you can take away there. Will Disley is likely going to miss this game. So Justin Herbert, with a banged up Ladd McConkey, with a Will Disley potentially missing, they'll need other guys to step up, and that'll be part of my keys as well, as just, hey, you got to keep having those other guys continue to step up. And if you can add Ladd McConkey into that, that's great. But Justin Herbert's health and how that interior offensive line holds up against Kalijah Kancey, holds up against Vita Vea, that's not what you want to see when you've had those struggles, and they'll have to surprise us. But the defensive side of the Chargers, I'm really excited to watch this matchup because it is basically another opportunity for this defense, which has been the best scoring defense in the entire NFL, to show that they can do it against a really good offense. Because, James, it's been awesome. The Chargers defense is legit good, legit really good even. They've only allowed opponents to score 20-plus points twice this season. The problem is those times came against the only other 2 top 6 offenses that they're going to face. It was the Bengals and it was the Ravens, and those teams averaged 28.5 points against them. They gave up season highs in back-to-back weeks. Now they get another team who, even in a game I heard you, complaining about just the offensive lulls, and I've never connected with you more, just, the offense disappearing for 4 drives and just like, hey, score 2 touchdowns and then just we'll see you in, half an hour or something. The Chargers have had that happen a lot of times, and even in a game that happened to them last week, they still put up over 400 yards of offense. This is a team that's put up 420 plus yards of total offense, the Bucs have, in 3 straight weeks. This is a really good offense. This is what I know is a good defense, but how much can you take them down from that season average? Can you hold, it might not be 20, that might not be the threshold you're trying to target in this game, but can you hold them to 23 or less? And I think that is one of the most exciting things about this matchup, is this really good defense going up against what has been a beat up, but is still a very good Buccaneers offense.
Yeah, and of course, Mike Evans, being back changes everything for the Buccaneers. He's a huge focal point. Whether he's getting the ball or not, he draws attention. Now, of course, Bucs fans are pounding the table. They want him to be a focal point because they want him to get his 1,000 yards for the 11th straight year. He needs 102.5 each game the rest of the season to reach that 1,000-yard mark.
And they know it. They're talking about it too. Baker Mayfield knows what he needs to do to get there too, right?
Absolutely. And of course, Mike's usually good for a game where he has, a $180 or 200. It's not going to come against the Chargers, I don't think, but it's still out there. But that's why guys like Kate Otten have stepped up and been such a big part of it. Sterling Shepard has stepped up and been a big part of it. You finally saw a breakout by Jalen McMillan last week. He was a rookie that got all kinds of hype. I'm as guilty as anyone of hyping up, the rookie out of Washington. Scored a touchdown in his first NFL game. Didn't score again until last week against the Ravens when he got 2.
It's a long time.
He's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. Raheem Jarrett, he's another receiver that has stepped up in different moments, and he's on the injury report. So it's one of those things where the strength of the Bucs is the offense. There's no doubt about it. So I had a guy on my show yesterday that I have on every Wednesday. His name's Evan Klosky. he was talking about this game is essentially Bucs strength versus Chargers strength, Bucs weakness versus Chargers weakness, and it's going to be a battle of wills to see who comes out on top. So I think if the Chargers do what they typically do and they hold the Bucs offense to 20 or less, they're going to win this game, because I don't think the Bucs defense can hold the Chargers to 20 or less. And that's going to be kind of the barometer there. To me, this is going to be the first one to get to 24 wins.
I think I totally agree with that. I don't think put those parameters on it, but that's what it feels like. And I mean, I've had a Keys for Success show where I was like, hey, the goal in this game is score 20 points, because I don't think that team can score 20 points against the Chargers. This is a team that can, and it might be an unrealistic expectation for this defense to hold the Bucs to less than 20 points. But a big part of that's going to be the status of Joey Bosa, right? Did not practice on Wednesday's practice, and also the potential return of Denzel Perryman, because Deion Henley has had a breakout year, a Pro Bowl level year at linebacker, and for Chargers fans, that's a really a sight for sore eyes. But Denzel Perryman is the enforcer. Denzel Perryman's the guy that gets you off the field in short yardage situations, and that has been killing them recently. He's been limited. His return would be a huge shot in the arm for this Chargers defense as they try to prove it against a really good offense. But we're going to tell you exactly what each of these teams has to do to win this game, and I feel like for me, there's three specific things where if the Chargers do it, they will get the dub on Sunday. So we're going to talk about all that and more on this Crossover Thursday. First, I need to tell you guys today's episode is sponsored by Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program. The possibilities are endless, and you also can access unique experiences that are exclusive to Built members. I love using the Built points for travel, and Built makes it so easy to turn rent into rewards. If you're already paying rent, why not make it work for you? I remember when I was renting from an apartment, it just always felt so terrible that I was just giving rent money away and getting nothing back for it. And that's how it was until I found Built. Start earning points on rent you're already paying for by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. All right, we are back here for this Crossover Thursday, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Bucs. Thank you to all the everydayers for always making us your first listen. And also, if you guys need a second listen, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL, where they have 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning, where you won't need any coffee to wake up with that dude's takes. And also my boy Tony Wiggins in the barbershop as they bring on the experts from around the Locked On Podcast Network who cover their teams every single day on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast from. And it's time to get into the Prize Picks keys for victory in this one. And Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. James, there's a lot of things that are going to factor into who wins this game. If you had to boil it down to 3 things, 3 key things, the recipe for success, the recipe for an upset, right, for the Buccaneers in this game, what are those?
To me, it's make smart decisions, run the ball early, often, and efficiently, and then bend, don't break. So smart decisions, right? Sounds simple. Baker is struggling to do exactly that the last couple of weeks. Last week against the Raiders, 3 turnovers. The Raiders had like 5 takeaways all season coming into that game, right, and the Bucs turned it over 3 times. Now, the first interception, you tip your hat. It was a great play by Chason. And then the fumble, Baker didn't stand a chance. It was Rashad versus 2 blitzers. He's got to be able to hold onto that ball, but it's really not on him. But the week before, 2 interceptions by Baker Mayfield against the Carolina Panthers. So that's 5 turnovers in the last 2 weeks. Luckily, the Bucs win both games, but you're on the road. If you're not going to win the turnover battle, you have to at least break even. They've gotten away with losing the turnover battle 2 straight weeks and still winning the game. That's not happening on the road against the Chargers. You have to make better decisions. You have to protect the football. Then run the ball early, often, efficiently. I don't care if Bucky Irving plays or not. The Bucs still have to figure out a way to run the football with Rashad White and Sean Tucker. Since returning from the bye, the Bucs have 157, 236, 152 rushing yards in each of the last 3 weeks as a team. That has to continue. You run the ball efficiently, You're going to control the clock. You're going to keep your defense on the sideline. You're going to be able to control the tempo of the game. And in a game like this, that's probably going to come down to one possession, you need to be the one that has the ball way more often than the other team. So run the ball the way you have been, control the clock, put together those 12, 13, 14, 15 play drives that we've seen them score on, and then bend, don't break. This defense is in shambles. But they won against the Detroit Lions in Ford Field earlier this season by having a shutdown red zone defense. Give up all the yards you want, but when it gets down to crunch time, have Cameron Dicker come out and kick a field goal. Don't let Justin Herbert score. Don't let the running back score. You have to hold them to field goals. You're going to give up yards, but clamp down in the red zone and keep it to 3 instead of giving up 7.
Well, and there it is. I mean, the Chargers basically have to do the exact opposite of that. And I think that spoke to me, especially with what happened right in the last game for the Chargers, where getting them off the field, the Chiefs, that is, in the red zone is what kept them in that game, what gave them a chance to go win that game. But what killed the Chargers in that game is that when the Chiefs got that ball back after Justin Herbert orchestrated another drive to get the lead against Kansas City with less than 5 minutes to play, and they didn't win that game again because why? You let them run 4 minutes and 45 seconds off the clock and get a chip shot field goal. Not only the 4 minutes and 45 seconds, you made them burn all 3 of those timeouts. If you're the Chargers defense, you need that play to be able to get you off the field. And this is a streaky team for the Chargers sometimes. We talked about with the Buccaneers last week, you said, yeah, they scored 2 touchdowns and you go like 6 drives where it's all turnovers or punts, right? The Chargers have that, especially for their offense. And that is one of my biggest parts of this game. Find the consistency and play a full game, right? Another week last week where your offense gets shut out for a half. I promise you, if you don't score in both the halves in this game, you're not going to win the game. Like, that's just as simple as it needs to be for me. Like, you can't keep having this total feast or famine offense where, like, nobody was more surprised than me than the Chargers came out in that second half and scored 3 straight times and put up 17 second half points on the only 3 drives they had. But you can't have that inconsistency when you're playing against good teams and you're playing against a red hot Buccaneers team who's won 3 games in a row, right? The other part of it I would mirror you on is winning the turnover battle. Yes, the Chargers have the least giveaways in the NFL this season, but the other thing we've seen is they don't really have the margin for error to be giving the ball away, right? The only reason they're at 8 wins and 5 losses right now is because they've only given the ball up, 0.5 times per game so far this season. And then it's the Baker part of it, right? Because the Chargers defense has been pretty feast or famine as far as getting takeaways. And Baker Mayfield has been pretty feast or famine as far as giving the ball away, right? It's pretty wild to watch it because it's in all or nothing, right? Baker has 2 interceptions in back-to-back games, obviously 3 turnovers in the last game. He has multiple interceptions in 5 out of his last 8 games. But then there was 3 games in the middle of that where he didn't throw, at least didn't throw an interception for 3 straight games. So for the Chargers, who up until the Kirk Cousins 4 interception game had gone 3 straight without forcing a turnover and a takeaway, you have to be able to do it. You have to make the bad Baker come out, right? You're not going to be able to do it if you're letting Bucky, Irving, and Rachaad White just run all over you. Rachaad White is a very capable back. If Bucky can't play, don't be like, okay, well, the Chargers will be good now. That's just not the way it's going to go in this one. And the last thing for me is the other guys have to keep stepping up. The only good part of not having Ladd McConkey last week is it forced Josh Palmer into a bigger role. It forced Quentin Johnston into a bigger role. And they stepped up and they answered that call, right? Will Dissly gets a shoulder injury and a stupid play at the end of the half that meant nothing. Stone Smart comes in and has 3 catches for 54 yards in the second half. That's huge developments for an offense that got shut out last week. That's gotten shut out in 4 halves this season where they haven't been able to put up a point offensively outside of the pick 6 in the second half against the Falcons. So to me, those other guys have to keep stepping up. And then defensively, right? Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, 2 rookie 5th round picks that are forced into action who have been awesome. They get Mike Evans this week. There's not a lot of Mike Evans out there. They could have played well against other really good receivers, right? This is a fun test that I hope they're up for because we could get some really cool moments in this game with a big freak outside like Cam Hart going up against a big freak outside like Mike Evans. And that should be one of the fun matchups. And then if a Joey Bosa doesn't play, a Tuli Tuipulotu has to step up, right? And that's what it's going to be if the Chargers are going to win a game with huge playoff stakes on the line and playing a really, really good team, whether you're at home or not. Chargers offense has to keep up. And the Chargers defense has to do whatever they can to slow this red-hot Buccaneers offense down. But Man, I'm so excited to watch it. This is, to me, like I said, one of the funner matchups of the year. Definitely one of the funner crossovers of the year. It's been a lot of fun to talk about this game, and it should be a really, really good game. But thank you to everyone who made us your first listen today. All Locked On Chargers and Locked On Bucs fans. And make sure that you guys check out tomorrow's show as well, because it is your team every day, and you can find it by subscribing or following for free on Locked On Chargers and Locked On Bucs YouTube channels, and also wherever you get your podcast from. I know for me, I post the show every day on my social media. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports. You can find James Yarcho. If you want to get a little enemy insight for Chargers fans, you can go at JYarcho_Bucs on Twitter. But hey, man, so much fun. Huge game this weekend. I can't wait to see how it plays out. But make sure you guys are checking out your Friday episodes of the Locked On Chargers and Locked On Bucs podcast.